And welcome back. We are about to get into our second segment for this lovely, lovely Thursday morning. In with us, of course, is Diane Wade Moore, who is the Program Analyst, United Nations Development Program, and Lionel Requena, National Coordinator, UNDP, GEF Small Grant Program. Guys, good morning. United Nations Development Fund Small Grant Program. Good morning, and it's nice to have you in.
Good morning.
Thank you.
All right. So today we're talking about, it's called the GEF, right? GEF
Yes.
Small Grants Program. This is officially your call for people to send in their submissions. Before we talk specifically about GEF, I just want to talk about how the funding cycle works for UNDP and what type of organizations and groups are you looking to work with?
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, and certainly the GEF Small Grants Program is a global program implemented in 125 countries and by the United Nations Development Program. And the GEF Small Grants Program can only fund registered non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations involved in supporting the implementation of the three pillars of the Global Environment Facility, which is social, economic, and environmental considerations in these projects. And so community-based organizations, grassroots organizations, women's groups, fishing associations can apply. In terms of our grant cycle process, today we are launching a call for concepts, and this is specifically with funding from the Oak Foundation and the Global Environment Facility through the GEF Small Grants Program implemented by UNDP. And the call today is basically for organizations to submit concept papers to the GEF Small Grants Program by calling 822-2462, but also visiting our website, www.sgp.undp.org for additional information.
And go ahead.
Okay. Now, although we are having a formal launch as it relates to this call for proposal, you spoke as it relates to the cycle.
Yeah.
We don't really have a cycle per se.
Okay.
We are calling attention to this window because it's a very important window for us, and we're trying to attract innovation and new people to the program. But whenever you have a good idea, our cycle is, if you have a good idea, we will listen to it.
That's fantastic, yeah. Because some people wait for a call,
Yes.
But they don't realize that they can
It's
reach out.
always open,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, you're looking specifically at marine and coastal protected areas for this particular grant. Is that right?
Marine and coastal environments, so it can fall outside the protected areas. So we're talking about our coastal communities, those people that work or operate anywhere, any place in the designation of the coastal zone in Belize, which are our coastal communities to your reef. And if you have a couple people that want to move outside the reef into the deep sea, the marine environment, the deep sea fishing, we're willing to look into that as well.
Have the UNDP done grants like this before? And if so, what has been the outcome?
Well, in fact, one of our flagship programs of the GEF Small Grants Program is the COMPACT program, which is Community Management of Protected Areas Conservation Program, and it has contributed significantly to the protection of the Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System World Heritage Site in terms of supporting the co-management partners along with the Fisheries Department to improve co-management efforts, to also look at sustainable fishing regimes such as managed access, which is one of our very important scheme to ensure that we secure our fisheries resources. But I must also applaud the work of the civil society organizations, the fishermen, the people on the ground, ensuring the actual implementation of managed access, but also the Fisheries Department as a regulatory agency, ensuring that there is long-term sustainability of our marine resources.
Okay. And how can these organizations go around getting these grants?
Well, the call that we are putting out is a call for concepts. So we've made it very, very simple. It's just a 3-page concept where we're just asking you to give us your idea, and we vet it internally. And if it is a viable concept, we then sit with you and help in the preparation of the proposal to access the grant. So the first step of any organization, and as Leo had indicated earlier, we mean any organization. I think our
So if it's a women's group from Sartene,
women's group, a youth
Okay.
group, a tourism group, the communities could come together and form a livelihood cooperative or things like that. The first step is for you to contact us regarding your concept or your idea, and then the office then moves past that.
That's great, because typically you put in a proposal and you have to have all the details worked out. But what you're offering is the opportunity to work it out together.
And the good thing is that we also offer a planning grant. So some communities out there, some organizations might not have the capacity to write a concept paper or a full proposal. We can offer up to 5,000 US to hire a consultant to do your workshops, do your consultation, to get your feasibility study done, and of course having a solid proposal submitted to us. The great thing is that we have funding on a rolling modality basis, and we encourage organizations to just submit ideas, call us.
So if you only have a concept, you may not know the full cost of your project as yet.
And we don't
Do you have
expect
to
you to.
include that in your concept paper that you're submitting?
Just very, very rough estimates.
Okay.
But it is recognized that it is only a concept, and as you develop, these things change. The idea of a concept is more to give us an idea as to what you want to do, and not necessarily to cost it out or to get into the technical details at that point. We do have very capable people within the organization, and that mentor organizations as well that we could pair you up with, which I guess we should also include in the discussion. The Small Grants Program allows for a mechanism where if you are not a registered organization or your community does not have that type of thing, that you could utilize what we would call an intermediary. So if there is an NGO in your community, the grants can be shunted through that entity on behalf of the community.
And what type of funds are you talking about that are available through the Jeff Fund?
Currently the call is for 5,000 US up to 50,000 US. And so the organizations that meet our eligibility criteria would submit proposals to us, and ultimately the National Steering Committee will make the final decision in terms of those proposals.
What I hear from what you're saying is that you're deliberately looking for very innovative
That's
projects.
correct.
So you're not getting somebody who's had a lot of experience. Well, they can have a lot of experience, but because they're not going into the full detail, they're really just dreaming up what can potentially be done. And this means that you may have some new organizations that you'll be working with. What if I just have a community group that I've been working with for a while, and we're not registered as an NGO, we work in the community, and we have something great that we want to get off the ground? How would you help them to be able to possibly access the grant?
Well, go ahead.
So the SGP program has embarked on what they call a Grant Maker Plus program. And the reality is, because of who we are targeting, from the history of the Small Grants program has always meant that the SGP have to do a lot of hand-holding. And particularly for those types of organizations, as I said before, the option is that for your first grant you use an intermediary, or the able people within our Small Grants program have walked community groups through the process of being registered.
Nice.
In many cases, especially when it comes to schools, tertiary, secondary, tertiary, university, a lot of the times they might have the idea, but they don't have the funding to eventually carry it out. Are they eligible to eventually apply for grants?
Well, educational institutions would not be eligible, but they would be considered partners as part of a broader project. And so we have examples where in schools in the Toledo district, we have provided solar energy. We have funded the computer labs. We have provided scholarships to students. Of course, following an eligibility criteria, but it's part and parcel of a broader project to support livelihoods, but also promote low carbon technology.
But I will give you an example as it relates to, I guess, the loophole or the way in. A few years back, one of the winners of the Small Grants Program Innovation Award was an environmental club out of a school.
Oh,
exactly.
So while the school might not be able to submit the proposal, if you have a registered entity within your school, your groups, your clubs and things like that, they can approach the program with their project.
So let's talk about some of your success stories through the Small Grant Program.
One of the I would say very, very successful initiatives is the fact that we have supported transboundary efforts with Mexico. For example, Sarteneja Alliance for Conservation and Development, based in Sarteneja, has strengthened collaboration between Mexico and Belize through the funding with the Small Grants Program. But also, we have so many protected areas in Belize, and through this project with Sarteneja Alliance for Conservation and Development, we are looking at harmonizing and bringing all the management plans together under a combined and collaborative effort to ensure that we have system-level collaboration with Mexico, but also you have all the protected areas in Holchan, for example. You have Bacalar Chico. And how do we ensure that there's much more synergy and pooling of resources, because resources are becoming limited, and also the enforcement, the education and awareness programs, but also the fact that the Small Grants Program has invested in over 800, training 800 fishermen as tour guides. And so a lot of the tour guides operating here in Belize, in Placencia, in San Pedro, in Sarteneja, have actually benefited from our training programs and now earn a livelihood opportunity. And also the fact that we have a picture here with Managed Access, which we are supporting the replication and scaling up of Managed Access, and ensuring that we're empowering the fishing associations, the community representatives to ensure compliance and also stewardship of the marine resources.
And the photo we saw a little bit was one of the really cool projects. That's the seaweed farm?
Yes, funded by the Jeff Small Grants Program, yes. And in fact,
Who
next
would have
month...
thought of farming seaweed? I think then you talk about innovation. That's
Exactly.
And that is the thing. One of the things that we've realized is a lot of the innovation comes from the communities themselves. Like Leo, I always speak to Leo about this, I have my own list of what I feel are the coolest projects in the program.
Are you going to share?
Yeah, you should go ahead.
This is a great platform for that.
We have recently, and this I believe this to be ultimate cool, because it's new for our program, and whenever we try something new, we've recently funded or funded for the urban gardening project for Southside Belize, and I feel because urban gardening or urban productive spaces, if we want to call it that, it serves both a social need as well as meet our criteria in terms of the global environmental benefits of it all. The projects that you will see that are more successful are those projects that sit at the heart of people's livelihoods, or provide for some basic service that might be missing within communities. And so those tend to be the agroforestry project, the agricultural projects, the seaweed projects and things. Those tend to be the ones nearer there.
Right.
Absolutely, and I love that it's this is also a backyard garden as well.
Wow. I should also mention that the Jeff Small Grants Program, it has 4 windows. In fact, we have funding from the Jeff, we have funding from the Australian Aid for community-based adaptation projects.
Those are our climate change.
Yes, climate change projects. We have funding from the Oak Foundation, which we are re-granting. And our newest program is our Indigenous Community Conserved Areas Global Support Initiative with funding from Germany. For the next 5 years, we will be supporting local communities and indigenous peoples to implement projects, but also look at cultural protection, preservation, and the stewardship of our natural resources. And ultimately, by having an empowered civil society network, we then ensure that we're protecting our heritage, which is crucial.
Fantastic. Now, when you speak about like the backyard gardens, for example, we've spoken with the groups behind it for quite some time, and it's interesting because you wouldn't have imagined it to be an environmental project. It was more geared towards the social construct and the health aspect. So having had this conversation this morning, many organizations are saying, maybe I can find something to fit within it. How do you decide on the themes? What are really the deciding factors when it comes to the themes that you will look further into being able to provide grants?
There is a national strategy that is guided by global priorities, primarily as it relates to the Jeff.
Okay.
The themes are also pretty much aligned with what our donors find important.
Yeah.
Like the oak monies we invest in the coastal and marine environment, because in this region, the Oak Foundation supports sustainable management of marine resources and network building capacities and empowering communities to be a part of the management of those resources. So the themes are decided by a national strategy that changes every 4 years.
Yes, every 4 years.
Or not change, because we tend to continue on it, or we build on
Expand
it, or things, but it's
Prioritize.
they prioritize at a global level, and we then scale it down. The idea, though, as you said, the linking of and making connections within the environment is what is missing from time to time, and many people have not approached us because of the name environment in the program, and then they feel that we are looking for primarily conservation projects and things. And while we do see a need to continue our investment in those types of projects, environmental management is about the human environment interface. So it's about how communities use their environment.
Yeah.
And so whatsoever we do, it's how we use it that makes it an environmental project.
Now, and also when you talk about sustainable development, how open is the funding for projects that may lead to some sort of profit for the community? In other words, if I can come up with a business model that uses something from the environment and can still profit me, can I also?
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, we had the example of the seaweed initiative.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have a private investor, and they're now exporting seaweed to Los Angeles.
Wow.
That project started 3 years, 4 years ago. And so we can see the direct win-win benefits where women are now employed, men are fishermen, now have again a livelihood opportunity, but also the fact that they're restoring habitats because the seaweed provides a nursery grounds for juvenile lobster, conch, and other marine species. And so that's an excellent example of supporting the placenta producers cooperative along with the other partners involved to implement livelihood and economic development in the community. So what we're trying to do is to scale up this initiative in Turnef, in Sarteneja, in other communities, but also sharing the knowledge with Cuba, for example, and Colombia, which we've facilitated knowledge South-South exchanges.
Well, this seems to be a win-win situation for folks, actually for the country. But I'm sure you guys have done definitely a lot of groundwork. Have you seen any organizations who you know for a fact that are really making an impact, and have you reached out to them?
We do have our traditional larger NGOs that have access to grants. Our protected areas managers, primarily the Belize Audubon Society, TIDE, FCDs, the people that we know that are very and have over their time in existence made an impact on the broader management of the natural resource basin country. And we appreciate them as partners, and they continue to access the grants. Our call now is to have other people that might be interested, because one of the things that limits perhaps our NGOs in country is we don't have many NGOs that have a national scope in their actions. And so their actions are geared around certain community. We're trying to fill the gaps for those areas that fall outside the NGO network. And we fill those gaps by targeting directly the community-based organizations.
All right, so let's just recap one more time. You're officially putting out the call for concepts.
Yes. Concepts.
Go ahead and share the details.
Absolutely, and the call is to invite registered and qualified organizations, and even if they're not registered, any idea out there in the coastal community, in 22 coastal communities in Belize, from Corozal to Toledo to Barranco, can call us, can submit ideas, and then of course we will walk them through the process. And the end goal, the vision here is to have the funding reach the ground, support the livelihood of these communities, but also support any economic and social development, which is crucial at this time, especially since we have the Sustainable Development Goals, and we need to ensure that we support the implementation and achievement of those goals.
And the grants can be anything from 5 to 50.
Yes.
Thousand US dollars
Belize
to 100,000.
Okay.
Yes.
And I love that once again, people only have to submit a 3-page concept and you will help them work out the
Right.
details as to how they can achieve their goals. If there has to be, what are the objectives that the concepts need to prove that they will meet?
Well, one of the strategic initiatives that the concept would contribute to is our what we call community landscape and seascape initiative. And so under that, anything that focuses on environmental education, awareness, protection of biodiversity, economic livelihoods, skills training, capacity building, but also micro enterprises.
Okay.
We're very focused in terms of supporting livelihoods and economic benefits and supporting the well-being of local and indigenous communities.
All right. Well packed, that much we could say. And again, for we know for a fact that this is a win-win situation, not only for those folks, but then again for the entire country. Guys, thank you so very much. Diane Wade Moore, thank you, along with Lionel Requena. Thank you guys so very much. And I'm sure the next time we see you, it will be definitely with some more success stories. But then again, coming up, medical health care getting to another level. The Belize Medical Associates will be telling us some more about that. In the house with us, we've got Dr. Fernando Cuellar along with Dr. Victor Rosado. These guys will be with us coming up in just a few.